They don't belong nowhere else, so they belong together.
But you're the man in charge.
I'm Johnny. We're the Randos.
I did not know that this film was based off a photo booklet where there's a guy that's following this biker gang, you know, seeing how they live, seeing how they operate. I'm gonna say that I went into this film expecting more about the gang life within the bikers club, but I didn't get that. I got more on the relationships within the bike club, but I didn't get too much from the gang life. Because if you're a biker gang, in my mind, I'm expecting some real ruthless stuff. These dudes sitting around having picnics and smoking cigarettes majority of the film. Okay.
But I feel like that was kind of that is the gang life, right? Or at least that was how it started. Like, we see the bicycle gang grow from a small racing club to something huge, to a true and proper gang. It's not plot driven. It's not story driven. It's much more of a character driven film, and it's much more of like a character study. And the plot is secondary if it's even there at all. Like, it's very difficult to even describe the plot. Personally, I liked the movie, although I usually go for more story driven films. But this one reminded me a lot of Goodfellas. And in the movie Goodfellas also is not plot driven. It's more vibes driven and more character driven. And it's and just like Goodfellas, this movie starts off romanticizing this bicycle club, because they started off calling it a club before it became a genuine gang. And the club was started not because anyone was trying to rebel against anything. It was started because Marlon Brando looked sick in the movie The Wild Ones, and Johnny was like, yeah, I want that. I want to be that dude. What's interesting is he grew up watching Brando, but then as time went on, these kids grew up watching him, and that change is profound, because what used to be kind of a fake but cute and romanticized danger turned into a very real danger, and attracted very real dangerous people who are doing things Johnny would have never even thought about. I found Tom Hardy's portrayal of Johnny to be really interesting too. Apparently Johnny is based off a real guy. A real guy named Johnny really did run a gang and start a gang after watching Marlon Brando. But everything else, I'm not sure exactly how much is true. And it's more about you initially wanting to hang out with this gang, and then you realizing that, oh, there's a difference between like romanticizing violence and actually like committing violence. And I thought that was really fascinating.
Benny is played by Austin Butler. And I gotta say, man, this kid has one of the brightest futures.
Yo, I was thinking that too. I'm like, I've said to you before, there's something about Austin Butler that I really shouldn't like. I'm like, he's just like too pretty. But yeah, he kills it every time. Like, he just dunks it. I'm like, yo, all right, dude, you're working on another level. He is everything Timothée Chalamet wishes he was, right? Like, this guy kills it, man. I don't understand Timothée Chalamet, but yo, I get Austin Butler. I get this dude.
This film was supposed to come out in 2023. And it got pushed back until this year because of the writer strikes. You know, Austin Butler was on a roll because, you know, this year he had Dune 2 come out. So it's kind of good that this film came out right after that. And, you know, it's kind of tonal difference between the character that he played in Dune and the character that he played in here. Because this guy, Benny, is a guy that's just like, you know, I love the open road. I love riding my bike. I don't listen to any authority. Right. Okay. I go by the seat of my pants. And if Johnny is the leader, I'm going to follow the leader, but I don't want the responsibility of being a leader.
Right. Someone described him as everything Johnny wishes he was. Like, he is really, truly the real deal. He is totally free. He has no attachments to anything. You tell him to jump, he jumps. You tell him to duck, he ducks. You tell him to go left, he moves left. He doesn't ask any questions. At one point, he's even like, why do I have to think if you're going to think for me? And Johnny's like, hell yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, the perfect soldier.
What were you thinking back there?
Nothing. I saw you squaring off with them guys. What do I need to think for?
And he's an interesting vehicle to view this movie from, because he himself never actually changes. He stays the same despite everything. It actually defies even logic why he wouldn't change after nearly losing his foot in the fight. After apparently he kept falling off his bike a lot. We didn't see this, but he fell off his bike a lot. And he kept getting up and going. So he's a person who he's like a rock in the middle of an ocean, and everything is changing around him.
Ooh,
and at
man,
one
you killing
point,
it with these metaphors, bro.
That's funny.
You killing it. We gotta slow down. Let these people hear it, okay?
Funny. But at one point, things change a little bit too much, and he starts to question whether or not he should stay where he is. He's acting next to Tom Hardy, who is no acting slouch at all. And Tom Hardy has a very kind of like whiny, weaselly voice in this movie. He's got a pretty good Midwestern accent too. So both of these characters together playing off each other is like the bulk of the film. And thank God they're both excellent, because it takes a while before you realize there's no plot, because you're so caught up, in watching these guys, light up the screen.
A person that I enjoyed in here a lot, and I think is going to get an Oscar nomination for this film, is Jodie Comer. The reason why I think she's going to be because she is the driving force behind this film. She is like our eyes. She's telling the story. With the other women that's in this film, they're married to some of the other biker guys and stuff. They're like doing things off screen. Like one biker guy's wife, she has like a nail salon somewhere, and that's just that. Another Johnny's wife is really just a stay-at-home mom. You barely even see her to the end.
Right.
But her, she is in this thing, and she sees all these negative things that's happening within the biker gang, and she is trying to tell Benny, yo, I want you to leave this gang. This is not good for you.
Right.
I don't want you riding. Yeah, it scares me, especially this soon after surgery. I don't like it.
Her initial impression of the gang was actually like so accurate, but the more time she spent with Benny and the rest of the gang, the more the romanticization of being with the biker gang kind of fell over, right? When she first saw them, she was like, yo, these guys are a bunch of drunks and losers. What the heck? I'm out of here. But there is something seductive about this quiet guy in the back playing pool and riding his bike. He's not pushy. He's not pushy with it. And he shows a level of dedication that I think she finds appealing. And she thinks that dedication might actually come onto her too. Like he might feel equally as dedicated to her as he feels to Johnny and as he feels to the gang. But as time goes on, she realizes that no, there's nothing she can do to change Benny. Benny likes the open road. He likes the motorcycles, and he seems to like that more than he likes her. And I find that to be really fascinating.
That level of dedication that you're talking about in today's time would get him arrested. Okay.
Oh, yeah?
Okay. Especially if you waiting outside her girl's house all day and all night. She has a boyfriend.
Right.
Okay. Waiting outside on the stoop. And then he got a whole bag that's already packed to leave. And I'm like, man, that's some chump stuff. You want to go say nothing to him, but you're going to yell at him in the car when you riding off.
That's interesting.
That's so weird. That's so funny.
I actually thought that was the exact opposite. I actually thought that guy showed a lot more strength than Benny ever could understand by just leaving. Like, I don't know. I thought that was that was a level of strength that neither one of our characters really ever learned to understand that. Obviously, this film has masculinity front and center. Like you said, the women in this movie, other than one, don't say anything. Some of them don't even have lines. And I thought the movie would address this more. Like I said, the beginning of the movie, it starts with this mostly just being a way for guys to have a relationship with one another that's non-sexual, and they can just have fun and just be cool with one another and essentially just love one another on their own level. But it turns into something really gross and really effed up and really violent. It's got a case of what I call the not gays, where the movie works so hard to tell you that this character is not gay. He's not gay. No. He's got a girlfriend. No. So I feel like that really waters things down. Because if they just let it go, just let two guys just vibe, and whatever their sexuality is, just let it go. No one cares. I feel like it would be stronger. I think it would show that that's why people want to be in this gang. Specifically, men want to be in this gang, because this is one of the few places where they can openly express themselves without ridicule, something that a lot of men don't have. But the movie never took that extra step. And I think it's because, unfortunately, this movie is about men and it's made by a man. And he himself is probably one of those dudes who's like, oh, no homo, you know, one of those types. So you can feel that all throughout the movie. And it really, really, really waters down the message to the point where it's almost hard to tell what the themes of this movie are and what the movie's trying to say.
Yeah, it's kind of like the opposite of what Top Gun was, where you would see a whole bunch of gay vibes.
That's actually a great example.
Okay, but then you're like, but they're supposed to be like straight.
Yeah, but they don't care is like the point. Like in Top Gun, there is a very strong like gay vibe under there, but the characters don't give a damn because they are secure in their own sexuality and they don't feel like they need to correct you right all the time.
Right.
But this movie is less secure. This movie is like no homo. I'm not gay. Which bizarrely makes it feel gayer. Like I don't know. Yeah. So I feel like it really waters the themes down quite a bit.
Like there's a scene where Johnny is talking to Benny about saying, I'm not going to be able to run this gang for long. And when he's talking to him, they're underneath the street light. It's dark. Yep. They're all close up on each other like this. Close. He's like, this is Benny and this is Johnny. He's like, I need you to take over this gang.
Right.
It's going to be you. Okay?
Yeah.
It can't be me anymore.
Exactly right. And he's like, I can't take over the gang, Johnny. I just can't do it. And then Johnny's like, that's why it has to be you. You know what I mean? Honestly, legit, in a way, there's power in the idea that you don't know if they're gonna kiss or something, right? There's really serious power between that because that is not emotions that straight men are like feel allowed to express. So I feel like there's a lot of power in that. But because the movie is like always backing up from that, it waters the themes down quite a bit. Anyway, this movie is not as secure in its own masculinity as I think I would have liked it to be. So while that doesn't necessarily make the movie bad, it does make the themes messier. Supposedly 70% of the dialogue in this movie is like verbatim from the interviews that happened.
Wow.
That this movie is based off of.
I did not know that.
But because people don't speak in perfect sentences, you know, the plot kind of just meanders and kind of goes. It feels very nebulous and it feels very hard to grab. Sometimes I don't even know what year it is. I'm like, and there's a point where the movie bounces forward in time and then backwards, and it took me a minute to even realize that was happening. And again, I'm not even sure that's necessarily a bad thing. This movie almost has like a dream logic or dream feel. It just kind of floats around, and by the time the movie ends, I'm like, what year is it? I'm like looking at people's sideburns. I'm like, I guess it's like the mid 70s maybe, but I don't know. It's sometimes this movie can be hard to grab and hard to nail down. I liked how a real counterculture influenced media, but then this media created another version of this counterculture that the Vandals participated in. Even that got morphed and effed up because when Johnny created this gang, he put in all these rules in place like, oh, you can challenge me, any day of the week. But no one challenged him because, he was, why?
He's Johnny.
Everyone likes Johnny. Everyone's having a good time.
Right.
But by the end of the film, these kids that grew up watching him and knowing about his rules, they took those rules to heart, okay? They took that to heart. And this wasn't a game to them, right? This was very real to them. And when it came to the challenge, he was like, fists or knives? And dude was like, gun, bitch, bow. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, whoa.
All the new guys that came in, they started just like messing things up and changing the culture of it. And that's where Johnny was like, I don't trust these guys. Johnny didn't have a chance to get in there and actually confront those bad problems that was going on with it. He kind of ran away. I don't know, it was just like that's like his character, but I was like, can he lead this group?
These guys were real gangsters. These guys were really from the gutter, like for real, okay? And they needed this gang to do things for real, okay? Not play, not pretending. I think it's notable that Johnny had a day job. He wasn't a biker 24 hours. He was a trucker for most of the day, and then after that he took off his trucker jacket and put on his biker colors and played pretend essentially. Not only that, they very specifically showed Johnny driving cars. Like his main driver was not a motorcycle. It was like a family car. It was a good way for him to perform masculinity, a safe way for him to perform masculinity with his friends. But these other guys were not playing. This was not play. This was very, very real. And this led to a lot of the older bikers being like, what do we do?
What do we do
now? Because the gang had already gotten it's a life of its own. New rules that Johnny had not put in place suddenly cropped up. When one of the gang members, affectionately named Cockroach, wanted to leave, Johnny really didn't care, but the rest of the gang did. They're like, you can't just strip your colors off and think everything's gonna be okay, which forced Johnny to have to shoot his good friend Cockroach in the leg. You know, he did it as respectfully as possible. But he had to shoot Cockroach in the leg and tell him to just go, never come back. Kind of like Simba from Lion King or something like that. You know what I mean?
Run, Simba.
Exactly. And when Benny saw this, Benny was like, this is not what I signed up for. This is not the kind of gang that I forget leading it. I don't even want to be a part of that. You know what I mean? But Johnny was just like, I have to, because I'm the president and
I gotta show strengths.
Yeah, exactly. The gang had grown into something much bigger than it started out to be. I think this movie really should be good, and it really should have masculinity be front and center, and it should be questioning it. But the movie never takes that big punch. It never swings. It always ducks it, you know, because it's afraid of looking gay or something like that. And I think that's my issue with the film. There is a potentially powerful story about why and how come men can't fully express themselves, even with other men. How come they can't really truly be themselves? And he spent his whole life looking for belonging, looking for a place that would accept him. And when he found it, he didn't even see it, right? Because his girlfriend was right there, or his later wife was right there the whole time, but he kept pushing her aside to be with Johnny. And I feel like this movie could have been much stronger and harder in its themes, but it wasn't. It was much more shy and much more guyish. I get frustrated by guys because guys are always putting on this performance, and I'm like, stop! Oh my god! I just want to shake dudes. I'm like, stop, motherfucker! But this movie is also performing masculinity very hard.
You know, you went to go see Barbie and you loved it.
Yeah, of course. Actually, that kind of reminded me. There's a great TikTok talking about how this guy he felt abandoned and betrayed by men because when he was a kid, he once said that he loved Powerpuff Girls and he got clowned for it. But now that a lot of guys are older, turns out guys have always loved Powerpuff Girls. And we've always seen every episode, but for some reason we could never express that between each other, right? And I think this movie
no damn sense.
I think this movie is that, right? Sometimes guys just want to talk about freaking Powerpuff Girls because it's awesome, and they're looking for a place to do that, but there's not always that outlet. And Benny thought joining this gang would be that outlet, but it wasn't. And it was not that place. I hope it's obvious that I am putting a lot of meaning in this film, but I'm not sure if that meaning is actually there because the movie is much more shy about talking about masculinity. It really just wants to talk about the gang and how the gang started off as being something fake, and it turned into something really, really, really real by the end of the film.
And for me, I'm thinking you're saying, if you're going to be a gang, be a gang. That's what I'm saying. It's like, if you're going to be a gang, then just be the gang. And I understand that from Johnny's point of view, it turned from what was a innocent club where he just like, I just want to look cool with my dudes to being to some freaking, we're money laundering, we're doing murders and stuff like that, like real gang stuff.
While I would have preferred a more secure film, this film is still good. I still enjoyed the film, even though it wasn't plot driven, even though it was character driven and much more of a vibes film. Just like Dune, it was kind of a vibes film where there's not a lot of plot going on, especially in that first Dune film.
First one, boy.
Yeah. But when you watch Dune, it's fun, right? You're like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
But when you try to describe it, you're like, well, there was a worm and some sand. And, you know, and that's kind of how I felt here. You know, when I try to describe the movie, I'm like, oh, well, the plot is the dude watches a movie and starts a gang, and then the gang turns into a real gang, and you know what I'm saying? So there's not a lot of plot here, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And it does make the film feel authentic. I have never been in a biker gang. I have no interest in it, but I feel like this is probably as close as I'll ever get, right? It feels, if the movie feels very authentic, it feels real. It almost feels like a documentary at certain points, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it does.
And I say kudos to the director here for that.
I did have a good time seeing this film, and I am guessing Austin Butler is on his way to the top. Okay. You like this film. I did enjoy this film also. But more importantly, what did you think of this film? Get in the comments and let us know what you thought of the Bikeriders. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. You guys are great talking to us in the comments. You guys have been just really supportive of the channel. And if you are new to seeing our faces, please hit that subscribe button right at the bottom. It'll do you something good and make you feel good, all right? And if you did like this review, please hit the thumbs up. It really does help out the channel. Or you can hit the thumbs down, whichever you choose. It is your opinion, but just remember one thing, it is mostly wrong. I want a Harley Davidson now.
I would not recommend a Harley Davidson.
A Kawasaki.
I do have a Kawasaki, so yeah.
Yeah.